Welcome to the iNETrepreneur radio show. We are so honored to bring you your host, the ultimate celebritypreneur, connecting businesses and celebrities worldwide. Winner of the Networking Organization of the Year, best-selling author, magazine publisher, trainer, and owner and founder of Network Together and the iNETrepreneur Media Network for magazines, TV, and radio network, we're excited to bring you your host, Mr. Robert W. Jones.
Well, hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad that you're here on the iNETrepreneur Radio Network. I am the founder and chairperson of that network, and we are on live right now on StreamYard. I'm going to LinkedIn, YouTube, and various other channels on the network. And today, it's been really a crazy year. I just got through writing an article for a major publication, and one of the things I was just talking about in that article was just, the perseverance of perseverance. And I know that might sound a little crazy, but we have had to endure quite a few things over the last 18 months. I have lived in ways that I never thought I would think, just even 2 or 3 years ago, where, in our 5-bedroom house, we would have 3 bedrooms and 3 kids going to school, where I would move from the place of work to coming back home and being in the midst of my family instead of separate from my family. And all of these things have been due because of this thing called, COVID. And I know that this has brought, some mental stress, emotional stress, and even physical stress for a lot of people. But my guests today, are here to help you, and they're here to guide you on this journey. Success leaves clues, and I believe both of my guests today have learned from trauma and events that, might have put other people under, but they're here to help us so we can, grow more and do more. I want to remind everyone that, this show is always carried each week from 2:30 to 3:30 on YouTube. It's youtube.com/iNETrepreneur Radio. Just go ahead and subscribe to our channel, please, and you'll get to know when any of our guests come on. Also, we can be found at facebook.com/iNETrepreneur Radio. And once you learn how to spell it, I guarantee you'll never forget how to spell it again, because it's an unusual name. But I invite you all to come, visit us each and every week as we have guests from around the world share what they know, their knowledge with you, and really their passions. I think that's just as much important to know that they are passionate about what they do. It's not all about the money. It really is all about the service. And our guests today are about the service. And what I want to do is I want to bring on my first guest today. His name is Rob Carney. Hey, Carney. Hey, Rob. How are you?
I'm doing great, Robert. Thank you for having me.
Hey, I always love getting to be able to talk to my guests before we come on live. And one of the things I like is we were talking, Sherry and I, with you, and then you busted out with, I'm 27 years old and I've lived more life than a lot of people have in their lifetime, so I have a lot to give back. And many times I would say, come on, you're only 27 years old. You can't have that much now, can you? And
I can't blame you. No, I wouldn't believe me either. So I hope to shed some light on that.
Well, and I think it really does go. It's not always about time, is it? It's about action. And I think even in your years, which are a few shorter than mine at this point, you've created a lot of actions in your time. Even my son, he always says, and I try to teach him well, he's like, between money and between time and between change, which is the most important thing. And even my son said change, because it's the one thing that you can do, and it's unlimited. And I think that you've done a lot of pivots in your young life, and I think you do. You have a lot to express. So speaking of your life, what I want to do is kind of really, for the people who are watching the program today, what I'd like to do is kind of start backwards a little bit, and actually let's find out a little bit about Rob, before what we see here now and what I see on this show. Tell us a little bit about, maybe your parents, or, maybe where you lived, and, some of the things that influenced you. Maybe there was a mentor, maybe there was, a friend, or maybe there was a teacher. What were some of the things early on in life, that point of discovery that kind of created who you are now?
Beautiful. So For me, I grew up in the Boston, Massachusetts area. So in Weymouth, Massachusetts, where I was born, just, about less than 15 miles south of Boston. And so my story into where I am today started when I was 17, so about 10 years ago. And so at that point, I was a state swimmer in high school. I played lacrosse. I played basketball, like to play my sports, had a little bit of an ego, like I think most 17-year-old males do. And so then I had a concussion, and it was kind of a freak accident. It was my second one. I had my first one when I was a freshman in high school playing football. That wasn't that bad. And then my second one was when I was 17, water skiing. It was kind of a freak accident. Basically flipped over the wave. My skis hit me underneath my eye, knocked me out in the water. Since then, I used to have 20/15 vision. Since then, I've very challenging distance vision. So it really messed up my eyesight and my brain in general. So basically, it was about 5 months of me not being able to do any sort of physical activities, which is tough for, as I said, a 17-year-old with a big ego who likes to play sports. And someone said, "Oh, have you ever tried yoga?" And back then, 10 years ago, it was not very popular for guys to do yoga, especially 17-year-old guys to do yoga. But I figured, hey, this is the only thing I can do without getting dizzy, without getting lightheaded. So why not? Gave that a
But
try. Sorry, go ahead.
but you had to be, I mean, I'm sorry, we have to go back a little bit because that's unusual in itself to be 17 years old and to even think about yoga as being an option. You had to have a childhood that probably was maybe more open, for you, in certain ways. What kind of caused you to say, "Hey, I'm going to do yoga"? Because like I said, I played football, I ran track, and I know with me, and of course it's a lifetime away, I know yoga would have been just something that the Fruit Loops did. So, for you, for you to say, "Hey, I'm 17 years ago," even though it was in 2011, I mean, that might have been a stretch for most people, but why were you different? Why did you say yes?
I also think it was just out of desperation. I needed a change, and I couldn't take the pain. So the great pain teacher, you asked about teachers and mentors. The pain teacher was a great mentor for me. That was this, the stimulus for that. So, I kind of out of necessity and just running out of options. Doctors trying to give me, pharmaceuticals, all these type of things, and nothing seemed to be working. So after 5 months, I decided, hey, yoga can't hurt.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. My story was a little later. I was an athlete as well. I ran the 100, 200, and 400 meters in the
Wow.
long jump, and that's what I did in high school and in college. Although I gave up my track scholarship and I went into the Marines, and that was a tough gig. Some guys got in 3 years and they got out. Me, I went in 3 years and went in another 3 years. What was I thinking? And I know a lot of being a Marine, I mean, certainly yoga wasn't one of the first things that I had ever thought about. But tell me a little bit about the person who introduced yoga to you. Then, would you consider them a mentor or someone who really had a profound effect in your life?
Well, I honestly can't remember who the first person was that recommended yoga, but my gym teacher, he was very much ahead of his time. I think of most of my gym teachers I had prior to this guy, it was kind of just silly games, and most of these people weren't that healthy. But this guy, he had once weighed, I think it was like 280 pounds, and he was the most shredded dude I've ever seen. He could do more pull-ups than anyone. And so he introduced yoga to one of our gym classes. And at that point, I already done it. But from that point, that really solidified it for me. So I can't say I remember exactly who was the one, but he was definitely the one that showed me, hey, you can be a strong, grown man, do yoga, be well-balanced. So I think he was the one that solidified it for me. But I can't remember who the one that introduced me was.
Now, for some of us out there, yoga is alien to us. And, I think sometimes believe me, I hear about yoga all the time. And quite frankly, I can go to a website and I see the pictures and I see how, a person sits, and I can see how a person stands. And there's always this inspirational picture of a woman off the cliff with the, the water and the mountains in the background and the sunlight beating down. And it's like, fulfill your life.
Right.
And, you look at it and you're like, oh my goodness, I can do that. Then you find out yoga is a little bit different than just what the pictures express. That's probably like the 1 second of it. There's probably a lot more to yoga than what they express in images, isn't there?
Yeah, I think for me, what it showed me was that there's more to movement than just exercise. Because I think when I thought of movement, or a lot of people think of movement, we think of exertion, we think of hardcore, exercising, running, weightlifting, any sort of sports. But that's more the yang. If we're looking at a yin and yang and Chinese medicine, this is more of the yin side, the restorative motion. Yeah, you can do workout yogas too, but I really fell in love with the yin yoga, the restorative yoga, because I could then go play sports and then still do some restorative yoga, and that helped me recover. So it's kind of like the counterweight to doing these physical activities and then having something to, stretch me out to allow my muscles to recover. So it's a lot of connecting the breath with movements. And I think that's a big thing. We're so often stifling our breath in our daily life, not breathing fully, not breathing properly, and that can lead to a whole host of different challenges. So I think that was my first introduction to a mind-body connection.
Yeah, and I found in my life, I think the worst thing a person can do is to breathe with shallow breath.
Definitely.
Breathe deeply, breathe wholly, breathe in the universe of energy that's abundantly around you. And I think the more that someone's able to do that and reset themselves at night or reset themselves in the morning, we're really finding there is no it may manifest differently, but the connection, there is no real difference between the mental, the emotional, and the physical being of a person. We are a whole being, aren't we?
100%. And like you said, the breath is controlling everything we do. And so you think of the breathing. If you're running, you're probably breathing through your mouth very shallowly because you're just trying to pump oxygen in and out. So if we can control our breath, we can actually completely change our chemistry in our body. So if we're breathing fully, deeply, slowly, in and out through the nose, we're activating that parasympathetic side of our nervous system, which is the rest and digest. If we're huffing and puffing through the mouth rapidly in the chest, that's going to activate that sympathetic, that fight or flight mode. And when you look at a lot of people, they have forward head posture, which inherently makes your mouth open. So you're breathing through the mouth. So that can create a whole host of problems. So, posture is related to breathing. Breathing is related to posture. It's kind of what came first, the chicken or the egg. But at the end of the day, we can completely change our body, our mindset, our emotions simply by breathing. And I like to use the example that, we can go weeks without food, we can go days without water. We can only go a few minutes without breath. So the breath is probably something we might want to look to optimize.
And I think that's really important because I say the same things. You can look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you can look at your environment and where you are, and we put so much effort in the luxuries of our life, but the real luxuries are like you said, the quality of the air we breathe, the quality of the water we drink, and of course what it is that we put in through our food. What is our sustenance? And I think it's important. And a lot of time business owners, because we have a lot of business owners in our network, and I'm like, if you drink better water, will that be better for your business? If you eat better food, will that be better for your business? And so on. And the answer is yes, yes, and yes. But there's one thing to say yes, right? Having the mental knowledge of it, but there's another thing to create the action of it. What would you say to those entrepreneurs who understand, the let's say the academic side of the understanding, but maybe not the action side of understanding? What would you say to them to inspire them to take deeper breaths, to maybe even meditate, or even, God forbid, Rob, take up yoga?
Well, I like to say, at the end of the day, we want to keep it simple because we can overcomplicate everything. We can get the fanciest gadgets. We can track our sleep with, Oura rings and Whoop bands and all these things. And I've done those things and they're cool. But at the end of the day, I like to say, keep it simple, because if you are doing all these things, if you're running a business, you're doing a lot of activity, the last thing you want to do is now add chores to your list where you have to do all these different things because, I read somewhere I have to meditate 20 minutes a day. So what I do with my coaching clients is we focus on 6 foundation principles: moving, thinking, breathing, nutrition, hydration, sleep. If we can master those 6 basics, everything about our life is going to be better. If you are hydrated, you're going to probably have less headaches. You're going to sleep better. You're going to be less stressed because when you're dehydrated, your body's under stress. So we can go dive into each of these 6 foundation principles and recognize, hey, if I'm a business owner, I'm sitting at a desk all day, I'm not moving. My body is not getting enough movement. Therefore, my muscles aren't firing. That mind-body connection isn't firing. You're not releasing those hormones, those neurotransmitters to the brain to be creative. A lot of the greatest inventors, they talk about, hey, when I had my invention, it was on a walk. They were moving, or they were in silence. They were in meditation, getting their thinking on point while they were in a cabin in the woods, in a hotel by themselves. So at the end of the day, we want to focus on the simple sides of health, because the simple side is really where the magic lies.
Yeah, in really when you talk about the 6 steps, really it really comes across as very restorative. What you're talking about is like restorative processes, that help create a better body, if you will, to create a better mind, if you will, to create better neural transmission, et cetera. I mean, like even myself, the first thing I do, is besides breathe and get up in the morning, is just drink water.
Yeah.
It's like my body has dehydrated from that, and the entrepreneurs, we're a strange lot, I'm telling you. One of the things I say is, there's this old guy, I don't know if you know who he is, his name is Stephen Covey. And Stephen Covey had 7 habits of highly effective people, but probably one of the most important habits that we spend the least time on as an entrepreneur is sharpening our saw. And we spend, it seems like we spend the bulk of our lives working on what we do, but we don't spend enough time on who we are. And that, quite frankly, is the restorative, or it's the sharpening of the saw that entrepreneurs need. In our organization, we have lots of networking meetings, but we also have academies where people just get together, they learn and have fun, because people need that. We're social creatures. Tell us a little bit about, some of the, I guess, case studies, or some of the the light bulbs that have gone off with some of your clients who said, what, Rob, this has helped me be a better dad, it's helped me be a better business owner, it's helped me be a better husband, etc. I'm sure this has had a profound effect on a lot of people's lives.
Definitely. So I just returned from a wellness retreat less than a week ago. So there was 13 men, all men, entrepreneurs, a lot of them very successful entrepreneurs. And so myself and a number of my buddies, we got together and led them through some workshops. We did some ice baths, we did some breathing, did some exercise. We got them out of their comfort zone. And a lot of these guys were pretty healthy already. But when we can take a step back from our daily routine, where we have these blinders on, which we all do, and those are great tools to get things done, and they're great tools to use at the right moment. But when we leave these blinders on and we leave this armor on, all of a sudden one day we wake up we hit that burnout, we hit that wall. So part of what I found is, especially with retreats, when we get people together for 4 or 5 days, this one was 5 nights, 6 days total, so we got people together, and just watching people's body language, watching people's actions, their routine shift over a very short amount of time. It's very intensive because it's a condensed period of time. People come back. We had a call to get everybody together a week after. So that was yesterday. People are saying, I'm having the best relationship with my wife. My kids are saying, Daddy, why are you so happy? All these little things that we may overlook if we weren't aware of them. So just by getting out of our comfort zone and focusing on ourselves for a change, there's a saying I like to use in my coaching, which is the I, the we, and the all. We have to focus on the I first, because like you said, if our tool is not optimal, we cannot possibly be the best version of ourselves for our family. And we definitely can't be the best version of ourselves for an entire company or for the world. If we're not taking care of ourselves, it's not going to last. And maybe you can do it for the short term, but it's not sustainable. So, my invitation to everybody is really just focus on yourself. You are your most valuable asset at the end of the day, because you can have all the money in the world, you can have the best business in the world, but if you're in a hospital bed, what is that worth to you?
Yeah, and and the other thing that I like here is going deeper in what you say, change, and we talk about that, and we talk about maybe a change agent, but I've always said, you can have change, but if the change is only the moment and it's not persistent and it's not constantly driven, that change doesn't matter. It really what happens, and I was going to bring this up with Sherry, but because I think that we'll have a great conversation, but I kind of want to bring it in, right now a little bit earlier in the show. I wrote this at one time, and I'll just want to share it with everyone. I did computer programming. I did coding. My language was zeros and ones, and I felt like with that, I could create a digital universe all in my own. It's a whole different world. Our body is just a suit. It's a physical manifestation of all the energy that we hold, right? But one of the things I've always said, in many ways, we're computer programs, and we're bound to run the same patterns and routines if we don't choose to update, delete, modify, or change. And I think that that's what is so powerful about the retreats, because you kind of help a group of men, get across the finishing line. And, my boys, I have two boys, okay? And, they always ask me, like, you know, what about us? There's not a lot of role models for them right now. Who do we become, and who do we look to, and who stands strong with character, and where's our groups to become a part of so we can find our greatness? And so I think that you have something very, very strong for, boys like mine as well. But I want to take you, into a different direction here, because there's a lot of people, some people, and thankfully I was not one of them, but some people have to hit rock bottom before they can get back up. And there's signs of saying, hey, you're going down before you can go back up. But does everyone have to do that? Do you have some maybe words of wisdom of people? They're struggling. They're struggling with the head trash. They're struggling with pain. They're struggling with previous trauma. I mean, some of them even have medical PTSD, and they can't be the best versions of themselves, and they just don't know where to go or what to do. What would that conversation look like when you sit down with them?
Great question. So short answer is no, you don't have to hit rock bottom. I think that's where people like myself sometimes let me be the example. You don't have to do that. For me, I started Health Connections in 2018 when I came back from LA with a startup company that didn't start up with over $10,000 in credit card debt. Moved back with my parents, which the last thing you want to do when you think that you're about to start up a nice business and have all these cool things, and then you're back with your parents and 10 grand of debt. So at the end of the day, you don't have to hit rock bottom. Learn from other people, and that's where we have an abundance. We have unlimited resources right now, so there's really no excuse, in my opinion, to not be becoming a better version of yourself. We have the internet, and that's something where I feel so grateful to grow up when I did. I didn't have a smartphone till I was 18 years old. I see kids now 10 years old getting them. So I was kind of on the brink of growing up without technology, and then also having introduced my later teenage years. So I think that I feel like I've gotten a good balance of use with that, but it just, to me, it shows that we have everything we could possibly need at the touch of our fingertips. And now it just comes down, where are we putting our attention? Because now we have everything at our tips, and that can be overwhelming. We can get shiny object syndrome. So if we can focus our attention onto becoming better, watching YouTube videos, reading books, finding a mentor, hiring a coach, let other people who have succeeded in what you want to succeed in, let them be the guiding light.
And I love what you say that, because one of the things I said is, in my career working for corporations, what they paid me to do was really to create things to control the human mind, because we believed if we could create an amount of digital sensation in their lives, your time is your worship.
Yes.
They say a lot of time that your money actually follows your time. If you don't put time into anything, you're not going to spend money in anything.
Right.
And, it was our goal to, to gamify things, to create, drip systems, to create, a certain amount of profiling of everyone that we did work with as internet marketers, to really, it was the game of controlling the mind. And I think that is harmful and it can help, but it goes back to knowing the wisdom between, when and when. And that's really important. Well, we are already coming up to about the end of our segment. It goes by fast, doesn't it?
It does go by fast. Wow, just look at the time.
I know it, but let me go ahead. I'm gonna, tell us a little bit about your business and, some of the things that you offer, anyone who's under your coaching.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Health Connections basically started as me being annoyed. That's where a lot of problems start is, we want a solution. So I saw people, I used to work at a juice bar about 5 or so years ago, and I saw people buying all these garbage products and wasting all their money on these, trashy supplements. So I said, hey, I'm going to find the best organic supplements on the planet and share those with people. So that was kind of phase one. And then, the second pillar, so organic products is one pillar of Health Connections. Pillar 2 of 3 is my coaching. So I do one-on-one coaching. I do small group coaching. And part of that, we have a capstone retreat as part of the program. Then the third pillar is my podcast. So just like we're doing here today, I have conversations with health entrepreneurs, health professionals, people that are personal development leaders, people that are making change in this planet. So those are my 3 pillars: are products, podcasts, and coaching. And so that's the main thing of what I do. And, I try to keep it simple for people and make sure that they're getting what they need and personalize it to whatever their goals are.
Yeah. And one thing I want to add in there with that is, it is so important to understand, going back to environment, even though, sometimes, we put some emphasis, are we putting the right emphasis in our environment? And, it also goes back to the products that you use in the home. I mean,
Right.
Make good choices in that, because you can still breathe the right air, you can eat the right food and drink the right water. But if you have, products that you're bringing in the home to cleanse and clean and they're toxic, guess what? It enters your skin, it enters your nostrils, it may even get into your blood, and, all that you can do can be thrown away in a matter of moments, can it?
Absolutely. And I was on my walk this morning and I see those little yellow signs of pesticide use. And then in that same house, I see baby on board on the sticker on their car. And it's just like, are people putting 2 and 2 together that you're putting toxic chemicals on your lawn, and then you have a baby that's probably going out there putting their hands on it, putting their face, and it's just like you said, it's not one thing. It's the holistic approach that we need to be aware. We need to be thinking of what these things are doing, not just following the pack because some corporation tells you with their fancy marketing that this is going to be good for your lawn. Like, do a little research, think for yourself. And it's a challenge these days because we're so bombarded with information. But at the end of the day, like you said, if we can keep it simple, avoid toxins, move our body, think good thoughts, drink quality water, sleep well, 6 foundation principles. That's really all it is. Just keep it simple. And that's all we need to do.
Yeah. And start with those conversations. We started with success leaves clues. And, if you see someone you perceive as healthy, establish a conversation with them. I mean, if you see someone who's a successful business owner, you want to ask them questions. How did you do it? If you see someone who's really healthy, hey, do the same thing. Education is the one thing that can be ported into almost any environment, in my opinion. One more thing, I have your information. Is there any other way that people can get a hold of you, Rob?
Yeah, the best place is Instagram or email. That's okay. The best way. So my Instagram is just @Whole Health Connections, all one word. Email, like you have on the screen there, wholehealthconnection@gmail.com. And anybody having any questions, you just want to chat, I do a 15-minute free consultation call. So feel free to shoot me a message on either of those platforms, and looking forward to connecting and healing some people.
Well, I really appreciate you being on the show here today. I mean, I enjoy what you're doing, and I can see that you enjoy it as well. And you took time out to be on the show with me today, and I think we had a little bit of fun. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate you having me. Thank you for everybody listening.
Absolutely.
Network together. It's all about connections. Expand your sphere of influence. Build relationships. Be part of something bigger. Be part of Network Together.
Well, I just want to thank Rob Carney today. Again, 27 years old, and he already has a passion to help, other people to become healthier in body and mind, and probably even spirit. And I think it's important. We've come through some challenging and uncertain times, and it sounds like he's on the right path on helping others and being an entrepreneur to boot. I have to just celebrate that. I just have to celebrate that. And my next celebration I have will be coming on with me right now. I have Sherry Anshara with me. Hello, Sherry.
Hi, Robert. Thank you. I'm delighted to meet you today.
Well, I am delighted to meet you. I'm delighted to be with you, and I'm so excited to be able to talk with you. I hope that you found Rob as interesting as I did.
Oh, just wonderful, really spectacular, and assisting people in real practical ways. That's my favorite word, practical, in any language. The practicality of it in your everyday life.
Yeah, and so many times I've said it in the past. We pay people so much money to create the sizzle. And so many times I call that promotion, I call that marketing, I call that PR, all those wonderful things. It's kind of like speakers. People come to me, Sherry, and they always ask me, they always say, how can I pay to get to speak? How can I get on all these stages? How can I do all these things? I've been trained. And I said, well, the first step is actually to give them some content that's practical that they can use. If you can do that, you will find a loyal audience that will follow you wherever you go. Give them something that they can learn. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely, 100%. And that's what I'm all about. My courses are even called Intuitive Powers Practical Applications.
I love that. And I'm gonna go the same direction that I started off with Rob. I really do think it's very, very important that we get to know who you are, because I think if we know the who in you, it makes your what shine so much more brightly. And part of the who in you is just early in your life. I say that there's really three things that make up a person in my short version. I always say it's the nature that you receive, it's the nurture that you're given or lack thereof, and it's the noodle that you use. This little thing right there. And those things, can live in harmony or they can live in disarray. But either way, it really, creates who you are at any moment and given time because of your collective experiences through life. And in your life, in your nurture and nature, tell us a little bit about, you, maybe as a child or maybe as you were growing up.
Well, I would say that one of my tools that I teach, my number one tool, is NEO, non-emotional observer. And I have learned throughout the years that emotions are the basis of all illness. All illness is emotional. And so as a child at 3 years old, I was pretty evolved. And I was very fortunate to be raised by 3 teenagers who never babied me. So I had their language. But I remember telling my mother about the lights around people and asking her at 3, why are the lights around children so big and the lights around big people is so little? Which is really the aura, the electromagnetic bio. It's the same. It's your field. That's all it is. And my mother would say, why do you say that? And then you asked about a teacher. I've had several, but one of my best teachers taught me something that was so profound. As this little girl in class, I raised my little hand and said, well, if Columbus discovered America, how come people live there? And he said, memorize it and pass the test. And I knew that I wasn't going to learn anything. So I'm not discounting that, but I thought that doesn't make any sense. So I became friends with the library because we didn't have all of this way back when. And so I went to the adult library. So that put me on a quest for learning about history in different ways, not the history books I was given in school, but the history books that were in these libraries. And I read why, and then I started seeing patterns.
Mhm.
I started seeing patterns of behavior. It doesn't matter where it was in the world, what the language was, what the century was. And so I started doing research about the human condition. And I, even later in life, when I'm doing what I'm doing, I found out that in ancient Rome and Egypt, they had things called depression and anxiety and cancer. And so what happened? We have all of this technology. And then I discovered something in the work that I do, or the facilitation, not as a healer, but to support people to heal themselves, is that energy is a byproduct. That's all it is. It's a byproduct of either being conscious, or it's a byproduct of a limited belief system. So my teacher had a very limited belief system, not judging him, that Columbus discovered America. Not saying he didn't, but what were these other people doing here? They got here before he did, and there were cultures of all kinds. And so I thought, what is going on? So I actually teach people how to utilize, both personally and professionally, it's the same, how to focus their energy in the most productive, practical ways, and then the changes occur naturally instead of fleetingly.
Yeah, and and I want to go back a little bit, because you stated something that you'd learned early on, and one of the patterns that you saw in emotion, emotion, and so much of the time, and for so long, even in leadership, you didn't teach. We weren't taught, anything that even bordered on having an intuitive side, having a compassionate side, having an empathetic, all those are forms of leadership to me in my book. And one of the things that I like to say is, emotion is actually downloaded. It's the one thing that's downloaded in the DNA, because you know what? My mom and my dad, when they created me, I was downloaded the emotions that they had, because that's how we evolved. But the words weren't. And unless they wrote it in a journal that I could read, their words weren't downloaded in me, but their emotions were. Is that true, Sherry?
It is the truth, Robert. I know a very famous baby doctor, pediatrician. She's known globally. And 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and I'd be happy to email it to you, she asked me to write an article, because I have worked with women and couples while they're pregnant, and actually have a conversation with the baby. So I wrote this article called Baby's First Connection. And there are many traumas that happen. It's not wronging the parents, because they don't know. And so many of my clients I've even been in delivery rooms, home births. This is not what I do. I'm not a doula, but I've supported them through those 9 months, and they made such deep connection. So I have been talking about this since 1991 and writing about it, called cellular memory. So our memory is perfect. But what the teacher said, Sherry, just memorize it and pass the test. So I discerned the difference between cellular pure memory that makes a healthy heart, or a healthy system, or a healthy liver, or whatever it is, but the memorization were based on the belief systems. So I utilize humor. So Robert, I'll ask you, these are belief systems. Doesn't matter where we come from, whatever time, we all have them. So Robert, and this is the humor part. So, and I ask this to my clients, Robert, what's the first letter of the word belief?
B.
And the first letter of the word system?
It would be an S.
I don't want it together.
B-S.
So what that does is prevents us from believing in ourselves. So these are words that we can say, you can't do this. No, 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 not. And those NOTs emotionally turn into KNOTs. So, and so here's an experience. I was working with this gal, and she had kept, this is years ago. The kid's like, he's 16 now. It's so cool. But she brought him when he was 18 months old, and she said they fought a lot. And so I was able to work with him. And one day she called me, and I hear him screaming in the background. Now he's only 3, screaming. And she's crying. And I said, calm down. Just tell me in a nutshell. And she said, I just said to him, I'm going to put him down for a nap. A week later, they put the dog down, took the dog away, never came back. So he's 3 and he can't digest that language yet.
Right.
And so we have to, so I teach wordology is your biology. And that is one of the keys of NEO, non-emotional observer, and the language. We might speak the same language, but we always don't. And that's how the emotionality can get stuck in children. And then what I call the childish adult ego, without judgment, then we react instead of respond.
And it's so important that we bring up, the power or disempowerment of words, because, I think the course of communication, the last 25 years, maybe even longer, is we have distorted the meaning of words in such a way that we, as a society, even have become less connected in our speaking, definitionally speaking to each other. The practical use of language, I believe, has been eroded and diluted. And I think that that's why we have, problems in such ways that we haven't had before. And I also think that we're trying to reconcile, the emotional state of ourselves with the way to express ourselves. And I was wondering, your take on that as well.
Well, when we can't speak our truth, actually, energetically, I've created charts. And I have a chart of the energetic, which is physical. Energy is a byproduct, either consciousness or based on limitations. And if you look at the throat, we have throat cancer, we have neck problems. We have the carotid artery, that we have strokes. We have tonsillitis. Matter of fact, I just co-authored a book with a friend of mine, and my part of it was describing the emotionality of every disease. Every disease and illness has an emotional component to it. And when my clients realize how they have been affected, effected, or infected, and I'm not talking about disease, but infected from some of the language or the belief systems, it makes a difference. So now we don't have to wrong anybody. We don't have to blame our parents, because they did the best and worst they could with what they knew and didn't know. But it's up to us now as an individual. And so I teach heartness, the essence of the heart, in the allness, in the connectedness. And the reason I like the allness instead of oneness, because it says oneness, we're all the same. We're not. And that's why you use the word all, because in allness, we can all be unique and participate. So even at my age and stage, I have clients of all ages, but I have friends in all ages and stages. Some of my friends are in their 90s, and some of my friends are teenagers that will come over to visit me. It's really amazing. You know why? Because this is the key I teach, is listening. Not heary through the left computer brain, but actually listening to each other.
Yeah. And you brought up something that I bring up as well all the time. And it's that, I had a spiritual mentor in San Diego, and we used to practice and meditate together. And, we talked about business, we talked about economics, we talked about the world, we talked about cultures. And, and he would talk about, the Romans, we would talk about the Egyptians, we would talk about, the first generation. And, one of the things he said that we forgot to evolve is we've attempted to evolve the mindset. We've attempted to evolve the skill set, but we have not. We have lacked the place of the heart set. And he was the one that taught me. He said, before you can get your mindset, you need to have your heart set. And I remember I never really understood that, but it is true, because the emotions that are they're standard for our heart actually affect every physical particle in your body. And the basis of part of the brain is tissue. And it was a real amazing that, as entrepreneurs, and some of them just think that this is hokey pokey, but believe me, I've been around some amazing entrepreneurs in my life, and they really work on the heart of the matter, because it's like when I worked with professional athletes, they never said, boy, I wish I read another book. No, they just said, I got to drive myself. The passion, is my heart. It's like, I'm going to do it one more time. It wasn't about the mind. It was about a different drive. And, speak to that a little bit more about, what you liken to heart self set so that we can understand.
Well, if you look at the word compassion, it's a compass at your ion cellular level. And when you follow that compass, and then the word compassion also has the word passion in it. When you're passionate about your idea as being an entrepreneur, when you are passionate about it, it's called believing in yourself, no matter what anybody says. And when I first started out doing what I am doing, not from a training point, and actually developed this methodology that I call the Anshara method, it was because I taught it to myself first. And I didn't start out, though I had an entrepreneurial mindset. I started working at 12, and I had 2 older brothers that I adored. I worshiped them. They were 9 and 11 years older, and they were entrepreneurs from the get-go, and became millionaires, included their family. And so I loved that profile. I even became, in the 80s, a VP of marketing of a national company without a college degree. But nobody told me that I couldn't do it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think it's amazing when no one tells you that you don't know that. And I think that is a perfect way of being able to express yourself that create no limiting beliefs or
Yes.
thoughts or manifestations.
Exactly. And years ago, and this was in the 80s, or no, I was even before, I told my mother and sister I would like to fly an airplane. Well, now this is their belief system. Fortunately, I didn't follow it. And they said, well, you're a girl and you're too old to fly an airplane. I went, what? So the truth is, Rob, not only did I fly an airplane, I bought an airplane. And people said, how do you buy how do you buy a car? You put X amount of dollars, and once a month you get a bill, and you have to pay for it. But see, we restrict people through our own belief systems, our own limitations, and we pass that on generation to generation. What if somebody said to Winston Churchill, you can't do this? Or what if somebody said this? She's one of my heroes. Her name is Bessie Coleman. This is a Black woman in the 20s who was barnstorming from Atlanta, Georgia, and actually taught World War I flyers how to fly. But is she in the history books? Did anybody? She's been one of my heroes. She did something that no one, and people didn't even have cars then, really, back in the 1900s or 1990, 1990 or 1920s. But when we follow our heart in that compassion and the passion, it's not emotional. That is our source. That is what I call the godness within us. The godness within us to create and implement and manifest and actualize our life. And this will make you laugh. I always tell my clients, you cannot not create. It's impossible. You can create a fart. We laugh.
Yeah, right.
You can create a business. You cannot not create. You can create a nightmare, or you can create yourself being sick, but you can create yourself healthy. And without your health, what the heck is wealth? It doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't. And you touched us. I'm getting goosebumps on this one. You touched upon something that really, really matters to me. And the wiping away of history, and we see it so often, now. And actually it's, we always think it started back in Germany, but it's happened for millennia, and it's happening right now. And, this is the problem that happens when we start to wipe away our history, is we don't have the perspective to learn from the very history that we've been through as a humanity.
Yes. And you know what? This perspectives are the truth. That is our real teacher. But people have perceptions now. So this is what I say in wordology. Perceptions are the receptions and deceptions of our conceptions. We make something up, or we try to change it. That's how we can learn, when we see what people did, when someone had, I'm from Michigan, and people say Henry Ford built cars, or he invented. Henry Ford did not invent a car. He did not invent it. But what he did, whether you like him or not, he invented the assembly line. And that changed production around the world. Berry Gordy did the same thing with Motown. He worked on the line, and so now he creates Motown. So he had the writers and the people to teach them to dance and the people to make them up and the presents. So he took Motown and utilized it just like Henry Ford. And look what he created. He created the most beautiful sounds, but he brought everybody together. And that is what we are not getting about the amazing part of our history. So it doesn't become a story.
The celebrations of it all, and it goes back to the celebrations of all the successes and all of the failures. It is so important. My dad used to tell me, you learn as much or even more by those who have failed than those who have succeeded.
Yeah.
And he told me as a young kid, he said, and it's really funny, I was talking about this a little bit earlier. He says, you see that hot stove over there with the burner that's burning red? And he says, go put your hand on it. I said, I'm not going to put my hand on it. And he's like, no, go ahead, put your hand on it. You want to learn everything yourself? Go put your hand on it. And I said, no, because it's hot. And he says, exactly. You've seen someone burn themselves before, and you understand that you don't need to do it yourself because it's been downloaded into you. And he says, so much of what we do is being erased, and you know what? They're not going to be able to see that same burner anymore. And he was right.
That is absolutely the truth. Because when we are a collective, and that's why I love allness and that connectedness, and that's why I teach NEO, non-emotional observer. But you know who gets it the first is children. They get it, because all of that emotionality. And what is going on now is we've taught people to bully each other, and not able to express themselves. And I always say that our throat is the most important area in the body, because if we can't speak our truth, it shuts people down. Like that little boy, I'm going to put you down for a nap. Well, he didn't understand that. So we forget that we have to really communicate with each other from our heart, and then you can't miss. You can't miss, because the heart speaks the truth, but that left computer brain that goes to the right side, the male side, that's not male bashing, we recreate or manifest or manipulate. So that's why I teach the energetics, the consciousness of how the connections are and why, because you can't change the what of something until we comprehend why it happened.
And I think, in so much of our sales training and so much of our marketing and business, and so much of it is driven inappropriately. And it's really driven for, we've become such a right now society, that we are forgetting, that right now is attached to a next moment and a next moment and a next moment and a next moment, that there is no right now and there is no then and there is no there. And one of the things I say to business owners is, commerce, the word commerce, comes from the Latin and French word commercer. And it's really important us to understand, as business owners, it's about having a good and fair deal that creates value on both sides. And so much of what we are trained is you make the deal at the expense to the other one. And I say that that's not good business.
It is not. And one of the tools I teach for business, my business clients, stay out of the outcome. So the income, the results happen. So here's an example. So I'm going to start a business next February. All right, we have an idea. February 1st, February 3rd, whatever it is. But right here are the steps to make it happen. But if you're going in every day and saying, well, I'm going to start the business February 1st. I'm going to start well, but no, yes, that we already know that. Stay out of there. We've set a timeline, whatever it is. But now let's get in the moment. What are the steps? And if you in the thinky instead of the consciousness of it, and then they'll say, well, I failed again. No.
Yeah. Oh.
And so
Yeah.
we will set ourselves up through language in the left computer brain that goes to the right male side. And we recreate, recreate, recreate. And so that's why I share, teach, whatever you would like to call it, profiles and behaviors and roles. So, what are some of those profiles that could have been your mentors, or some of the profiles that told you you were no good?
Yeah.
So, and then we get stuck at that age or stage. So, I always say, knowing at my deepest knowing, I can't change the past. It's 1 second ago, but I can change my future, and it's 1 second from now. What am I going to do differently than I did before? Not because I was wrong and bad or stupid. I didn't know what I didn't know then, but now I can know it. And how
And
do I apply it?
yes, and and then it goes back to like what I was saying with Corey. When it comes to programming and the programming of the mind, this is all our behavior is really just patterns, and and we're choosing to accept and deny these routines and patterns each and every day, and we become, we who we are because of that. And that's why I found for so many people, it's very, very important to have a well conditioned, I like to use that word, coach, because what they do, and I don't like saying pattern disruptors, but I'd like to think of them. I think of things as more as pattern nudgers. Because I think you don't have to create trauma to create change. You
Yeah.
just have to. Okay, you get what I'm saying then.
Yes,
Yes.
I love it.
Gosh.
I love it because people think they have to go through, and I've done. I honest to God, when I went before I transitioned, I better have an Academy Award for the most trauma dramas. I'm not kidding. But we don't have to do that. And this will
Yes.
make you laugh really quick. I'll do this. But a client came to me, a corporate woman, and she was like this. And I go,
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
And she said, I've never changed. And I said, so I use humor because she was like really in a whatever. And I said, I get it. I go, my dear, then I'm more impressed with your mother's vajayjay, because if you came out with that suit, high heels, and hairstyle, your mom's rocks. But you are somewhere between diapers and Depends and underwear. Do you think you haven't changed? And so her whole demeanor changed, and she started laughing, and she goes, that was really stupid. I said, I know, but that's the place to start.
Yeah, it is. It is. Oh, I'm gonna agree with you so much with this. Being a former internet marketer, I like to look at words. You and I are so spot on when it comes to words. And the first 3 words, the first half of this year that entrepreneurs look for is one of the words was fun, the other word was challenge, and the third word was learn.
Yes.
And it's just like, what does that tell us? Fun, along with they want fun, and they want to learn, and they want to get past the challenge. That's where we are.
And I always say, look at the words that have fun. Dysfunctional took the fun out. But what about the word funds? Money. It starts with fun.
Yes.
Make your business fun.
Or fundamental. I mean,
Yes, or fundamental or practical. We're on the same on that. I'm not kidding. I love language.
I love it too. I have this idea. We'll have to talk about this. I have this idea. I've written poetry for years, and I have this idea of calling the business poets, because I believe there's something beautiful about poetry, and it helps us gain a sense of discovery. And
Yeah.
these segments, Sherry, they go by far too fast. But I have your information scrolling across there. Just tell us a couple of things that you do for these corporate business owners on how you bring a little fun into their life, and how people can get a hold of you.
Well, they can get me on my website, which is Sherry at SherryAnshara.com. And by the way, for those business people out there, I have a free ebook called Get Your Answers in 10 Minutes. And it's on my website, or you can call me at 480-609-0874. And I actually offer a complimentary 10-minute session that goes with the book. And it's really amazing. And the key is, remember, you have everything it takes inside of you. Don't let anybody else's wordology as their biology infect you. Trust
Agreed.
your heart. Trust your heart.
Oh, what a joy to have you on today. What a joy to have Rob. I want to thank you so much. You have such a passion for what you do. I can feel it just, coming from you. And, you know, like my son, I like to talk about my two sons, and my one said the most important thing is to come into any environment, whether it be a Zoom or a room, with just an open smile, that you're ready, to converse and create connections. And Sherry, I think you've done that today. You are amazing, and I'm blessed to have you on the show.
Well, thank you. I feel very blessed, and I just love it. And I'm so grateful that you love language. And you know what? Poetry is a language of the heart.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, I'm going to say goodbye for today, but not goodbye forever, or goodbye for right now, but we're not forever, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Well, I just want to say thank you so much again for Sherry, Anshara, and Rob Carney for being on the show today. Both of them, they're business owners, but they also speak from both the mind and the heart. And they will also help you amplify your skill set by giving you the proper tools to overcome maybe some of the self-defeating thoughts that you may have as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, or even influencer. Again, we meet here each and every week from 2:30 to 3:30 Pacific Standard Time at this time of year. And I'd like to see you here next week. But thank you, everyone, for watching this show with us today.
You've been watching the iNETrepreneur Show, a production of the iNETrepreneur Radio Network, with host Robert W. Jones. Join Robert each week as he visits with new and exciting guests who inspire, teach, and mentor entrepreneurs worldwide. Follow Robert each Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Pacific, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, and 8:30 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time.